I'm Sam.
I'm Adam.
And you are listening to the PMMetalGuide podcast.
Woo!
I honestly could not tell you what episode this is, but I do know.
It's episode 18.
So this is episode 18, and we are covering, I guess we should say we're on the second stop of our Opethyssey.
No, the first stop. That was a prologue.
Alright, so we've left the port, and we're going to be talking about their debut album from 1995, Orchid.
Yeah.
Which we listened to extensively this week, and should have some interesting takes on, to say the least.
Also, to state the obvious, this recording should sound very different than our other recordings due to particular circumstance. We are live, together, in studio, recording this podcast, so...
Yes, it just so happened that it was going to be infinitely easier to record in person this week because of things. So yes. And with that, what have you been listening to this week, Adam?
I think the big one that we can both talk about pretty freely is Drunk Tank Pink by Shame.
By Shame?
Yeah, British post-punkers coming with their second album. Their first one came out in 2018. This was a Fantano 6.
Which I think is much better than the 6. A lot of people online have been loving it. Stereogum gave it, I think their album of the week. Pitchfork gave it a Best New Music. It's been getting reviewed pretty highly. And all, the online internet forums seem to enjoy the album. It's in, the top 15 on RYM right now. So, it's getting pretty universally loved. And I think for good reason. It's a pretty energetic blend of post-punk ragers that run the gamut from, very in-your-face, very traditional bangers to something more atmospheric, more post-rock influence, or even a little noise influence.
There's a lot of variety on this project, and I think that helps it a lot with its flow. Because there are some tracks that do sound like really dissonant noise rock tracks, and then there's other that are, like Idol's Worship, or I guess
like Proto Martyr or Fontaine CC, or it's a pretty large genre, and definitely in Britain, because these dudes are British.
Yeah, and I don't know, you can tell that they kind of wear their influence on their sleeve, or their influences on their sleeve. You can tell, some certain moments, I don't know, Snow Days is, very much so a Daughter's track. There's definitely, I think Best Friend is, a very Idol's track.
Uh-huh.
And there's just stuff like that. But I don't know, I think it's pretty good. I know you like it a little bit more than I do, I think, I don't know what exactly your merits are, but it's pretty solid.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's a 6. It's maybe, for me, a strong 7. Medium strong 7-ish.
Yeah, I'd say I give it a light 8, so not too far off. I mean, I think it's just pretty good, pretty solid from front to back, and I was reading a little bit about the context of the album, because, lo and behold, we got it from my radio station, and so you get the full press release, and tells you what to talk about if you want to review it, and all that fun stuff. And, so, a little that I know, that Shame were all 16, 17, and 18 when their first album dropped a couple years ago.
I didn't know that.
So they were touring around the world, playing 200 shows a year as babies. And so this album's sort of about the experience of, growing up on the road and then coming home and realizing there's nothing left there. And I think that's a pretty poignant thing to write about, sort of channels that youthful energy in a nice way. And the reason it's called Drunk Tank Pink is because the vocalist of the band wrote all the lyrics in a really small cupboard that happened to be that particular shade of pink.
Interesting.
Yeah, so context did it for me, and it's just really well done. Guitars here sound dope. The beats are furious. The vocals are downright, I don't know, vitriolic. Sometimes, but it's also just really fun, really well written, very catchy, and I'm enjoying it. When I have to do a regular programming radio show in a couple of weeks, I'll definitely be jamming some Shame tunes.
If you like, I don't know, modern post-punk, I think you'll be, right at home here. If you're just, metal stan, it might be a little heavy in certain parts, but it's not too bad. I think it's got some weight behind it, and the internet is loving it, so there's absolutely something there.
No, exactly, and I know we say it a lot, but I'd love to see this band live. I'm sure it'd be an absolute rager and a half. Let's see. Yeah. I have one album that I've been fucking cranking that I really enjoy. By Chicago emo pop 3-piece. The band is Hospital Bracelet, and their debut full-length record out on I don't know. It's some like decently small label that has
Counterintuitive.
Out on Counterintuitive debut record, Self Loop Summer. It's 7 tracks of biting, energetic emo pop. The vocalist for this band is a lovely non-binary individual, and throughout the record they sort of lay their heart on their sleeve, talk about horrible relationships, I guess the existential weight of just living in a really rough time for youth, and just, I don't know, a lot of cool experiences throughout. It's mixed beautifully. It sounds very warm, really cool, like, vocal production on the whole thing. And the songs are really punchy. They're really hook-filled, but they all have climaxes, and it sort of runs the gamut between being genuinely, like, emotional and heartfelt, and at the same time being aggressive and angsty. And it definitely channels that sort of like Spiderland or Neutral Milk Hotel sort of level of like looking back on your youth and realizing it's gone, but there's nothing you can do about that. And it's really good. I really enjoyed this album. I'm cranking it all week. Stuck in my head.
I listened to it once. Midwest emo's not for me, but I mean, I think the punk aspects of this album certainly are pretty dreary. And I don't know, if you like that sort of stuff, you'll really like this record, and it's got a heavy edge. They're young, youthful energy, like you said, certainly there, but I don't think for everyone.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. I mean, I was honestly sort of surprised I like this record, because it's pretty poppy, but I don't know, it's well executed, it's well done, it's just aggressive enough for me. There are only 7 songs here, it's really short, and all of them absolutely slap. I've had them stuck in my head. And funnily enough, the members of this band actually go to the college of one of me and Adam's friends in Chicago, which I thought was hysterical.
Who knows? Could have met.
No, literally. But, I don't know, a really young band. This is their, like, first album. It started off as, like, a solo acoustic project, and then the vocalist got a couple other people, and now they're a 3-piece, and I can't wait to see what they do. Really enjoyed this album. Probably be cranking it throughout the year.
Cool. Well, I only have a few more albums to talk about, because we spent most of our week listening to the album in question today. But one of the other records I want to talk about is this second album from Afghanistan-based, allegedly, one-piece atmospheric black metal band, Almach. Their second album, Dream Elegy, came out either last week or the week before, independently, and it's a very, I guess, sort of soothing mix of violet cold worship black metal with heavy dungeon synth influence. And if you know us at PMMetalGuide and have been listening to us for the last month or so, we've been listening to a lot of dungeon synth, so this sort of falls right into what I like to hear for black metal, and it's definitely an interesting sort of, I guess, take on the genre that we don't see too explicitly. Because, like, you know, dungeon synth and dark ambient usually have a place in black metal. I mean, you could consider, like, Eam Bald is half a dark ambient album and half an atmospheric black metal album. But I think that this is one of the first records I've heard that, at least modernly, really blends the two to be, I guess, a joint entity.
Yeah, I mean, you played, I think, one of the songs in the car earlier, and it was most definitely a perfect blend of dungeon synth and atmospheric black metal.
Yeah.
For better or for worse.
For better or for worse. I don't know if it's the best album of the year, but it's definitely been catching my attention, and I need to give it some more listens as the time continues to go on.
Yeah, no, understandable.
Mm-hmm. Do you have anything else? I have one more.
I have 2 more that I'll sort of briefly touch upon. I've been cranking some Untrue by Burial this week. One of the classic Newport albums. I don't know enough about electronic music, but I have to look at the specific tag. Burial.
Burial is future garage and dubstep.
Is it really?
I think that's what the RYM tag
Oh my
is,
god.
yeah.
Oh my god.
I'm pretty sure it's future garage is the tag. Which I couldn't tell you exactly what it means, but I'm sure someone could.
Yeah, no, it is future garage.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah. You know what? I have no idea what it means. Apparently it's very influential. It's a pretty solid record front to back. Like I said, I listen to basically none of this type of music. And the fact that I'm a poser browsing 4chan, listening to tourist albums, I think says enough. But I don't know. It's a really good listen. I threw it on with one of my non-metal friends in the car because we had a fair amount of driving to do, and it was a fun listen.
A great intoxicated listen.
Yeah, okay, big guy.
I'm just not even substances. I think that part of the melancholy of that record can really come into fruition if you're drunk, for sake of a better term. Because it's sort of like, I don't know, the album is so sad and so forlorn that, I don't know, to me, I need to be in a certain mood to listen to Untrue, because it'll make me depressed. I can't just, like, I'll bang to Archangel, yeah, but then, like, In McDonald's comes on and I'm like, oh my god, I want to die.
That's
so
funny.
yeah,
I mean, I'm gonna be real. I haven't listened to it too intently. I guarantee though, because like I enjoy basically every single Ucore album with zero exceptions. So I guarantee that, you know, if I spend some more time with it, I'll definitely enjoy it.
Definitely a great thing. I've talked about it before on here, and you know, it's just awesome. Finally, I want to talk about one more record.
Sure.
Pipe Dreamer is a post-metal band from Tampa Bay, Florida, that is strangely not on any database platforms, but they have been talked about by underground sources like Invisible Oranges. I know did like a review on it, and they put them in their upcoming stuff. So that's why I was interested in checking them out. Their debut, No Solace for the Soulless, came out last week, or this past Friday. And it's strange, man. You can also tell here that, like, the influences are like, oh yeah, that's an ISIS moment. Or like, oh yeah, that's a Cult of Luna moment. But the thing has a very lo-fi and kind of DIY vibe. Like, there are several acoustic passages on here, and the whole mix is very, very sparse.
Understandable.
It's sort of like if you took an Atmo Black album that's pretty, I guess, like, cavernous and in the cave recording, and just made that post-metal. That's sort of what you get on this project. I think it's certainly a interesting listen. I don't know if it's a good one. I've listened to it a solid number of times, and I really can't put my finger on it whether I like it or not. So take that with a grain of salt and, you know, check it out for yourself.
I just don't think we like post-metal very much.
Well, I don't know. This album, definitely notable to listen to. But I don't know if it's going to stick to the end of time.
I feel like just looking at the track titles, they seem sort of ISIS-inspired.
Yeah.
I just think the beginning and the end, and all these songs are like...
Yeah, Struggle and Strain, Now or Never,
Free
Go With Grace, and Anxiety Around... Yeah.
That's funny.
It's post-metal, lo-fi. And if that's something that interests you, definitely check out No Solace for the Soulless.
No Solace for the
Soulless.
Alright, last album I'll talk about, just touch upon it briefly, is the Gatecreeper surprise album, An Unexpected Reality.
EP.
It's an album, though. It's just not a full length. Anywho, it's like, I think you talked about it last week, it's like all grind with one Doom song. And, I don't know, I liked it. It's fun.
I think it's okay.
It's fine. Gatecreeper know what they're doing.
Yes, Gatecreeper do know what they're doing.
I'm sure it'll be fun seeing them in, like, Full of Hell and every Relapse band ever.
Yeah, we've seen them live.
Yeah, I know. Seeing them again when the world opens up again.
Yeah.
And I think that's about it.
Well,
unless you want to talk about Pompeii by Bastille.
No, I'll also mention another NB project. A Stick and a Stone is a one-piece NB slowcore.
Oh my god! I think was project. This on OYM?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw this.
It's slowcore with like ritual ambient.
Ritual ambient.
Well, think like We're More Ouroboros.
Yeah.
Same sort of vibe. Same sort of.
Ooh.
I wouldn't. I'm not going to give them that much credit. I would not compare A Stick and a Stone's Versatile is the name of the record. It's their third full length. I will not give it the credit that We're More Ouroboros.
I still don't even know what that We're More Ouroboros is.
So if you like We're More Ouroboros or like ritual ambient, or like really like, I don't mean like dust or slowcore. I mean like
slowcore, like 30 BPM,
like 30 BPM, like barely any guitar work, just like occasional drums and like piano chords. Like it's very like super sparse, super atmospheric, super ethereal. It's just their Elliot's voice and whatever the sparse instrumentation of the record decides. It's interesting though because there's so much there, and you can tell if you look on the on like the Bandcamp when you can see the credits. There's an unbelievable amount of people on this project that are working on it, and a ton of instruments. I'm gonna try and Google it now to see if I can find exactly some examples. But all right, I'm on the website now. So we have
Bandcamp. You mean?
Yeah, Bandcamp. The Bandcamp. So Elliot Miskovic's, I think that's how they say it. I don't know. Vocals, composition, pump organ, piano, marimba, kalimba, classical guitar, wood flute, percussive branches, bass drum, found sound excavation, home recording, production. And then there's a viola player, there's a violin and cello player, there's another viola player who also plays lever harp and crystal glass, a cellist, a pedal harpist, a regular harpist, and then a tape manipulator and percussionist. And like, honestly, you wouldn't know that there are so many people attached to this project, but there's a lot. It's not that dense, but I guess it is that dense. Definitely an interesting listen, but I don't think it will stick with me. But definitely one of note, and it was pretty high on the RYM best of the year so far at one point, so at least some people liked it.
Mm-hmm. Man, the beginning of the year is such a wild place for RYM.
Yeah, it is. You watch the list just absolutely fluctuate. It goes up and down, and random albums appear and then completely disappear. It's crazy.
Alright, so not that anyone really cares, but I just had to find out.
That's interesting. I don't know if that's
true. I would not call it post-rock. Atmospheric sludge metal. What Gracious Dawn should be better than a 3.22?
What does it give the album? What is the album as? What is it considered? Because it might be different. Their older stuff might be interesting.
Atmospheric sludge, ethereal wave, doom metal. Interesting.
I don't know if that's not a post-rock album. Man.
No, it isn't. I'd call it like a minimalist.
Yeah.
I don't even know. It's like atmospheric doom. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, assuming we have nothing else to talk about, let's get to the album of the hour, Orchid, Opeth's debut album from 1994.
Good record.
Yeah, this album slaps. Like, I knew it was good, and I think if you listen to our podcast from last week, we're both like, yeah, we're not really sure what to think of Orchid, but after listening to it like 10 or so times the past week, it's a pretty solid release, honestly. Like, really good debut. I can see why it has such a good legacy, and I can only imagine, like, hearing this in 1995 and just being blown away.
Yeah, it's really... I guess you just don't expect it, because when I was expecting to go back, I just sort of expected to have, like, a worse... I don't know, a worse Morning Rise, or a worse Your Arm, My Arm's Your Hearse. And, like, I don't know, it's completely different than that. It really is melodic death metal in almost the purest fashion you can get. And it's weird because it is so much different than something like At the Gates, which grew up in the same scene, or Old Amorphous.
Yeah,
right.
No, I agree.
Like it's just death metal. I guess written like Opeth, because there's nothing else I can describe it as. It
is totally death metal written like Opeth. Like, these songs are like 14, 15 minutes long sometimes. They feature, pretty cool dueling guitar leads for the harsh sections, a lot of like galloping drum work, a lot of acoustic passages to break up the flow, the occasional clean section, and, you know, Michael's signature growl, which is a bit higher this time around. And this album really feels like it was influenced by sort of everything. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, you got Silhouette, which is just this weird, like, classical piano interlude that's 3 minutes long. Feels like something out of an ELP record. I don't know, like, I totally understand, like, why this album made such a statement when it came out, because it really is unique. Like, I can honestly say I haven't listened to any albums that sound quite like Orchid, and it's nuts because Opeth are such a big and influential band.
I mean, it's so weird that you can pin a sound on a particular album, but you absolutely can with this record, because I don't know, I mean, you're right, it did absolutely just sound like nothing before, and the Opeth sound was born with this record in a weird way, because it's not the same, but it is. Hearing the transition over the course of the next couple of albums into what becomes their mid-period will certainly be interesting as we're, you know, doing the Opethyssy. But yeah, Orchid is just...
It's a wild record.
It's a wild record.
And I figured, you know, since we're sort of going on the journey, let's give some of the background, some of the history for this record.
Sure.
I happen to have the Wikipedia for the record right here.
Of course.
So I sort of knew, like, bits and pieces of this, but Opeth were formed in, like, late 80s, like 1989, by this dude named David Eastberg, and David recruited Michael, who was like 16 at the time, on guitar, to initially play bass or whatever. And then
1990.
They were formed in 1990?
Mm-hmm.
Well, according to Wikipedia, it says 1989.
I don't believe.
Well, either way, they were formed around that time period, and basically they had like a very around the clock, I guess, lineup for a few years. David, who initially formed the band, would leave the band in like 1992, and Michael would then take up vocals and guitar duties for the rest of the career. Then our boy Peter Lindgren joined shortly after, who performed on every Opeth record from here all the way to Ghost Reveries. And then they recruited two more dudes, a bassist and a drummer / percussionist. And yeah.
No, you can...
Oh, well, also, I was reading a Decibel article on this record, and it has sort of a really weird release cycle. They were signed by Candlelight without a demo, and then they recorded the entire album, but the album didn't actually get like a release for like a year, so it was just like distributed on tapes in Europe for a while. Which is kind of bizarre. Like, it's such a weird weird thing to consider, honestly.
I think that, I don't know exactly, obviously, the whole story behind it, but I mean, I've also read a couple of articles, and I think that the reason that Orchid just, for me, really sticks out, I guess, is still the fact that the invention of the Opeth sound happened with just these random fucking high schoolers who had been, you know, thrown into a studio.
No, it's nuts to think about. Like, I mean, Michael was literally 16 when he joined Opeth, so he would have been recording this album in like 94, so he was like 20.
Yeah.
And Peter Lindgren's like 21.
It's like, I don't know, if we were to get thrown into a studio, like, there's no way we would even come close.
Oh yeah, totally. And like these songs sound super fully formed, super mature. And according to a Michael Ackerfeld interview from 2009, apparently they'd practice like 6-7 days a week, and then so when they finally did get to record this in the studio, it was like bang, bang, bang.
I can imagine.
The thing was done, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, I'm going to paraphrase some of the Stereogum article on Orchid, because I think they do a great job. This is from their worst to best list. So released 5 years after the band's formation, Orchid is just as unlikely an album today as it was over 2 years ago. or 2 decades ago. That year, 1995, offered a buffet of what would become some underground metal's most influential album. That's right. And then listening to it, it's not difficult to forget that it's a debut album. And for a band that were, as the story goes, nervous in the studio while recording, Orchid plays like the product of a well-oiled and well-experienced machine, and not the result of 4 Swedish dudes a couple years removed from puberty, just farting around on their guitars. And this also notes like the timing of Orchid, because it came out like after the Varg shit show of the early 90s. And then it really, like, I'm sure we'll talk about this, but it really successfully combines like black death metal and then elements of like folk and prog rock in a way that I guess was really novel for the time.
So novel.
Yeah, like, I mean, I don't generally hear black metal combined with death metal in this way, because it's just so weird.
Yeah, the melody takes the forefront, and you just don't hear that on any other prog death, prog black, prog whatever. It doesn't. You don't get the Opeth writing style in any other group, because they're not Opeth, and they weren't a part of this culmination of tracks. And I think that it's so strange to, I guess, hear those super long songs for the format.
Yeah.
Because they really do work so unbelievably well because of, I guess, the prog influence and the, their constant shifting back and forth that happens on every one of the tracks. Like, this album just sort of never stops stopping.
Like Popstar.
Yeah, it never stopped the onslaught of new melodic death metal with a heavy black, not heavy, but a decent black metal influence as well.
Yeah, and I mean, another thing that's sort of notable is this album is quite memorable, and it doesn't feature like a single chorus or a single hook throughout the entire thing. It's just part after part after part.
It's like a Between the Buried and Me album.
Oh my god, it is kind of, except I feel like Opeth write transitions better even.
They write transitions better, and they have a discernible melody within every one of their parts.
Very true.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, I guess we'll start diving through track by track, beginning with "In the Mist She Was Standing." Oh, right. So the song opens on this pretty memorable melodic death metal, melodic black metal lead. Get a nice little drum fill, and suddenly they're doing some form of major scale Peter and Michael dueling guitars, harmonizing. And I was sort of joking to Adam before this began, but it really is like the guitar part from Papa Roach's Last Resort, like the.
When did Last Resort come out?
Last Resort came out in 2000, but this was a pretty typical metal thing.
Yeah.
And Opeth likes to use this trick quite a lot on this record. It sounds awesome. You get galloping drums, like a really solid bass line, and then a dueling lead guitar doing this cool thing. And like the rest of this album, this song's sort of it's made up of a lot of memorable moments. Like, the song doesn't really repeat anything. I think there's there's one riff that plays before the bridge, and there's one riff that plays before the end.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, it's all original material.
It's just, I don't know, it's really jarring to listen to, not only for the song, but for the whole record. Because, like, I don't know, look, I come away and I'm like, oh man, look, I don't remember anything, which is not a bad thing, I think, because as I'm listening to it, and I'm like, oh, that was sick. Like, we'll get to this later, but every single time that the Apostle in Triumph comes on, I'm like, oh, well, like, I know the riff immediately. Like, I couldn't say it for you now, but the best part about, I guess, Orchid is exactly that.
How sticky all the individual parts are.
Yeah, how much, on tracks like this, you just have so much variety and honestly, just a prowess at the content.
Yeah.
Which you wouldn't obviously expect.
Yeah, I agree, because, like, they're 20 here, which is nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And, after that, it's sort of funny, because, like, after that, opening death metal section, black metal section, where we get Michael's youthful rasp, sort of, his later screams would be characterized by that really deep, that really warm, low growl, like teetering on a mid. But it's funny because he's doing basically like sort of like a black metal scream here.
It's like kind of a black metal. It's like a high mid, almost. It's weird. Michael has weird screams.
Yeah, and I mean that they sound great and they work great in this context. And then after that, if you get like come into that, and then suddenly acoustic passage, and not just any acoustic passage, but like it's introduced with the sick Ebo part, which I'm pretty sure is Peter Lundgren because he played the Ebo on quite a few Opeth records. You get the sick Ebo part, you get this weird synth fill, you get suddenly a new beat entirely, a really cool harmonized acoustic thing, and then suddenly Michael's whispering, "I am near, yet so far away," which is kind of hysterical because whisper vocals are something we'll shit on a lot in a band like Agalloch, but they kind of work here, and it's a really nice like change of pace. And then, bam, we're hit with yet more melodic black death metal, and then the song just sort of rides a collection of really solid riffs and melodies with the occasional like vocal part for the next like 7 minutes, and it just works.
Yeah, I mean, this is just, it's such a big opener, and it's just, I guess, kind of emblematic of the whole record. If you turn on Orchid and you don't like In the Mist She Was Standing, then you're not going to like any of the rest of the record, because
it's definitely long-winded.
Yeah, I mean, I think this whole record is kind of long-winded, which I guess we can get to a little bit later. But, like, I really think context is so important for this album. And In the Mist She Was Standing is just so emblematic of that fact.
No, I totally feel that.
Seeing as it is the longest song on the record.
That's so funny. That's such a ballsy way to open your career, because, like, a lot of bands, especially a lot of death metal bands at this time, they'd make a few demos, they'd get signed, maybe the label would release a compilation EP or whatever, and then, after a few years of touring, they'd release their debut LP. Like, that's what happened with basically all the notable bands from this era. Both Opeth is just like, nope, they jump right into it with an hour-long record with friggin' 7 songs, and of those 7 songs, like, half of them are 10 minutes. Yeah. The opening is 15 minutes.
No, not even. There's two tracks that are shorter than, like, 9.5 minutes. 2.
Yeah, which is hysterical. And, I don't know, it just kind of works. Like, this song's kick-ass from start to finish. It's super memorable. The lyrics, which, like, let's be real, I've listened to a fair amount of Opeth. I couldn't discern a single lyric on this album, aside from like the clean parts and the whispered parts, and that doesn't matter. But if you actually look to the lyrics, it's some like, I don't know, ephemeral bullshit about like darkness enclosing and touching someone's flesh on the night. A kiss brought total eclipse. Like, I don't know.
Very romantic.
It's very romantic. It's very edgy.
Dark naturalism.
Actually, though, yeah, it channels that sort of like Opethian sense of like a spooky fall.
Opethian sense. You can't use Opeth to quantify Opeth.
Well, I just did. I mean, and sort of, so, I don't know, I guess it's a really good way to set the scene for the rest of their career.
Oh, certainly.
And it's funny that they followed up with, like, basically a ballad in the form of Under the Weeping Moon.
I don't know if that was too much of a ballad, Under the Weeping Moon, but
it definitely has a decent amount of clean sections, but it's definitely more of a ballad than the other songs, just by sheer percentage of harsh to clean. But I don't know, like most of the vocals are scrummed, and there's a fair amount of distortion on it. But it's such a weird way to open the song, Once again, guitar melody into black metal section. Into more guitar melody, into acoustic part.
I don't know. I'm just thinking about it now. Also, this album's produced really, really well.
Yeah, it sounds immaculate.
And I don't think that you could say too much about other records like at the time. Like, I know the Stereogum article credits like other albums that came out this year, like Destroy, Erase, Improve, which came out in 1985.
I mean, that record sounds great.
Well, yeah, but I don't think it sounds this great. Like, this album is clean. Like, this album sounds like the rest of the Opeth albums in terms of production. And I think that really helps the melodic black and death metal on tracks like Under the Weeping Moon and the rest of the album. Because, like, I don't know, sometimes with that old black metal, and even old death metal, like, you can find yourself, like, kind of sneering at the production and being like, well, this is good, like, I get why this is good, but at the same time, it's kind of unlistenable, but I don't know, this record is so listenable.
Oh yeah, I mean, it has a very, I guess, what's the term? Like, compressed, like, very mid-focus, very, like, warbly guitar lead tone, but that's not bad, considering, like, when I think 90s guitar tones, I think Dimebag Darrell, and Michael and Peter sound infinitely better than Dime on this record.
Yes, they do.
And, yeah, I feel that. Under the Roof of the Moon's a pretty good song, it's pretty fun. I like all once again, a common theme in this record, different parts flow beautifully, they sound great, they're sticky, and, despite the fact that Michael himself has said that the lyrics are just sort of absolute black metal, satanic nonsense for this tune. I mean, I like the vocals here. I think they work well. And it definitely channels, like, the comfortable feeling of badassery that's also spooky.
All the band members really, I mean, they just outperform each other. Because they continue to add on to the, basically the layered cake of what Opeth is, and, like, I don't know, there are random thumpy bass sections, and obviously prog drum goodness with random polyrhythm bullshit and the like. But it's just this track, like most of the others, is just
cool,
pretty heckin' cool.
Yeah, I agree, and leads nicely into track 3, Silhouette, which is sort of literally just a piano piece.
Yeah, we had to do a little bit of research for this because we were aware that Michael doesn't play piano, as far to our knowledge, and it turns out the drummer for this album, Anders Norden, played piano on this album and wrote Silhouette. And it kind of shows. I mean, this isn't a bad track by any means, but it's
an Opeth piano interlude.
It is an Opeth piano interlude. So I guess there's not too much to talk about. It's got a really pretty melody. It's obviously as memorable as they come. But, like, it is still piano interlude.
Yeah, actually, according to Peter Lundgren, this song just sort of came about hours before the band finished recording, and they were both and everyone was just sort of surprised that the drummer could play piano super well, which is hysterical.
Yeah.
And it actually reminds me of the Extra Pan song Art of Life, which features like a 9.5 minute long piano solo, courtesy of that band's drummer. So I don't know, I guess drummers are just sick at piano. Prog drummers are sick at piano.
Prog drummers are sick at piano, I'm sure.
Unbeknownst to everyone involved.
Yeah, clearly.
But I mean, I don't know. I think listeners know that we don't really like interludes, but this is a fine interlude, especially after we literally just got 25 minutes worth of badass grooves. Yeah. So
that honestly, the break here is appreciated, and that's how I evaluate an interlude. Because with those two tracks, it is really, it's an onslaught of material. You're right, 25 minutes of this brand new spanking sound.
A progressive black death metal. That is
just super. It's super heavy. It's super melodic. It's just super everything. Very, very, very bodacious. This album is
bodacious.
And the first couple of tracks, definitely, we need a break before we get into some more tracks. And for the record, I do like the way that the interludes on this record are placed, because I think they're placed very well. The next two tracks are also close to 25 minutes in length, and then another interlude follows that.
Yeah, it definitely creates a nice listening flow. You're not getting too overwhelmed, just back-to-back bangers. And as far as interlude tracks go, it's a cool interlude. It's an original melody. It builds nicely. It maintains the overall vibe, which is I guess all you can ask for an interlude.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then after that, we lead into actually one of the band's most well-known songs, the only song they continued to play live from Orchid in the 2000s, which is Forest of October. So, Forest of October was actually called the best song on the album by Peter Lindgren, and it's easy to see why. This song, like basically every tune on this record, opens up with some soaring guitar melodies over some galloping drums and thumping bass, and it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, but the main highlight, I think, is the melodies that are in place and the way that they're sort of laid out throughout the entirety of the 13-minute track.
Yeah, totally. I think I like the guitar melody at like the 7-minute mark. With the acoustic guitars, everything cuts out. It's just one acoustic guitar, one electric guitar, and then the electric guitar just keeps going higher and higher. And then the band comes back in. They're playing an Agalloch riff. It's cool. It's just very melodically satisfying.
You mean Agalloch? Gother.
Yes, they're playing an Opeth riff.
They're playing an Opeth riff, which then Agalloch probably ripped off. But I mean, the bands are very similar in aesthetic, actually, and melodic, I guess, ideas. But that's not the point. We're not talking about Agalloch. I don't know. This track just really shows
the songwriting prowess.
The songwriting prowess, but also just the ability for so much different content packed into one track.
Yeah, and it remains pretty engaging throughout too, which is kind of impressive. And one thing I will say is a trick that Opeth use a lot on this record is they have the rhythm section cut out, and then just have the guitars continue a melody, like, and then like wait 4 bars, or whatever, and then the drums will do like a syncopated crash and snare hit, and then like have everything start again, and then sometimes there'll be some panning where like one guitar goes in the left ear, one guitar goes in the right ear, and it switches between the two before going full center. And there are just a lot of cool like tricks like that help transition between these sections, help make it memorable. Once again, we have like, I don't know, just kind of bullshit for lyrics, but it's cool. Like, I couldn't tell you what the song is about, but it seems cool, and it definitely fits the Opeth aesthetic.
Yeah.
Apparently it was originally called Mystique of the Baphomet. And if that doesn't say anything, I don't know what does.
Yeah. I think all of the harsh Opeth stuff is pretty gritty and always has been, and it's no more apparent anywhere else than this record.
Yeah, totally.
And a track like Forest of October, which is mostly harsh, is obviously of note. And I don't think that's something we really fully talked about. Is that this album is mostly harsh? Yeah,
it's like a. Well, I mean, that being said, there are a lot more clean sections than I'd expect. But as far as vocals are concerned, it's mostly harsh. You're right.
Well, even still, I think songwriting wise, it's still not like the clean Opeth we know on tracks like Bleak or The Drapery Falls or something like Face of Melinda. Like.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. I mean, the band is definitely a death metal band with other sections first and foremost on this record. It shows. But, that being said, like, the dirty sections, they work really well, and they don't feel draining at all.
No.
There's so much melody there, and they really feel well written. It's nice and mid-tempo. And even, like, Michael's doing some nice melodic work with his pitched growls here.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, every member of the band contributes fully to the amazing sound that is culminated.
Even Johan de Farfalla, who apparently is now a Christian conservative Swedish party member, which is not at all cringe.
No, not one bit. We here at PMMetalGuide fully
support the Christian Conservative Party. I'm pretty sure they were responsible for not shutting down Sweden during COVID.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
Well, as far as the music is concerned, like, this album, another thing about it is it's really consistent. Like, even some of the best Opeth albums have songs that don't quite punch as high. Mm-hmm. Like, we'll get to those. But all, like, the actual songs here absolutely slap, and they're all absolutely joys to listen to.
It's really hard to, I guess, kind of rank the tracks, like, in your brain, because they do. This is a somewhat samey album. And if anything, this is the most samey Opeth album. But I don't think that's too bad, and you're right. These tracks really just, they sound all the same, but at the same time, they all have such a high quality to them.
No,
like you could if every day on the melodic dark playlist on Spotify they switched out one of these songs from Orchid, you wouldn't know the difference.
No, and I mean, I'm sure if we spend more time, we'd be able to recognize the individual songs, because they are distinctly different, but they're definitely operating under the same principles with the same sonic pastiches.
Yeah, they have obviously each one of them their own distinct melodies. The next two real tracks of which we will divulge on, but I don't know. It's just you have to understand when you're going into Orchid, because I think this is really the album that it requires the most explanation behind it, because
I got you.
none of the other Opeth albums really have the quality of what Orchid does.
I gotcha. It's a place and time album.
It is, well, yeah, it's a place and time album, but also know that obviously this is where Opeth got its sound from, but this isn't all Opeth has to offer, because I don't know, something for me At the Gates and Amorphous and other groups like that stuff really sounds similar to me. It's just so unbelievably similar.
I agree.
And this album is too, but it also has the quality of just being extremely well written.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So that's all.
And,
that helps us move on to the next track. The Twilight is My Robe.
All right. So The Twilight is My Robe is probably my favorite song on the record. It's more of the general Orchidian goodness, which we've seen before and we'll see after. You got guitar riffs, melodic guitar riffs, black metal screams, galloping drums, yet again.
And 2 acoustic passages.
Yeah, and Michael actually sings on these parts. It's cool. He definitely sounds like a wee baby boy.
Oh yeah, it's so far back, you can tell that it's somewhat timid.
Yeah, it's somewhat timid.
It absolutely adds.
You know what? It is absolutely drenched in reverb, so it works.
Yeah.
And the acoustic parts underneath him are pretty beautiful. I think my favorite moment on the record is the riff that starts around 3 minutes, where you have one guitar doing just galloping, and you have another guitar doing it just sounds really cool.
There's thrash on this track.
Yeah, there's chugs on this track. There's skank on this track, and just you know what?
It's just another testament to Opeth's songwriting chops and having the ability to put so much influence into such a tight and, I guess, unheard of package.
Yeah,
you really just can't.
I mean, I feel like we're repeating ourselves.
We are, but that's kind of the problem. That is the problem with this record, if anything.
Yeah, it's very consistent, and all the songs that are very good sound fairly similar.
You may obviously be listening to this and being like, yeah, they are just repeating themselves for every single track. But if you've heard this record, it is kind of hard not to do that. There are obviously certain moments, like on here, The Twilight is My Robe, where oh man, they got some cool chugs. It feels like I'm in the early '80s in a thrash pit, or the acoustic sections where Michael is crooning, but it is. I think one of the biggest problems with this record, if you would say that there's a problem, is that it is so samey.
Yeah,
and it's a little overblown in that fact because every track's the same.
Yeah, I got you.
It's really hard. It's really hard to discern between them, for the fact that there's no hooks, there's no, I guess, lasting melody from one end of the track to the other. It's constantly switching.
Yep. And I guess just the sheer quality of the riffs here is pretty impressive. I think the acoustic passages are beautiful, and the song's just great from start to finish. The lyrics, in case anyone are wondering, are all about Satan.
Seems like a theme on this record, on Orchid.
Yeah, I think it was just supposed to be heavy and edgy, and it was the early 90s, so they were doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Following that wonderful track is the final interlude on the record, Requiem, which we just learned earlier today was supposed to be a part of the next track, but we'll get to that later. And you can kind of tell, but it's a nice little 1 minute guitar interlude. It's fine. Like, it is what it is, I guess. You know, the break after Forest of October and Twilight is My Robe is needed.
I agree.
Again, so before we get to the last track, it is good to have another breather, albeit short. But what is interesting is how it leads into the next cut, which is The Apostle in Triumph, which is, at the very least, my personal favorite song off of this record. And honestly, probably one of my favorite Opeth tracks.
It's a pretty dang good song.
Oh man, that opening melody is just so... Oh, it's so grabbing. It's so enticing.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And that just carries the song through, and as it begins to build into an actual metal track from, I guess, the balladry that begins the song. It's just so stunning, and it's an awesome closer.
I agree.
I mean, I don't have too much to say about it. Just
well, hey, it has a random like synth breakdown.
It does have a random synth breakdown,
which sounds cool. And it's, I mean, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I mean, the song's made of a bunch of really quality parts. You got your melodic death/black metal going throughout, your acoustic breaks in the middle, and it's a really great way to end the record because it sort of encapsulates everything that's great about the whole experience. And I really love the way the whole thing ends, where like we're on yet another acoustic passage, and then Michael just sings like, "As the rain keeps falling," and that's just the last thing you hear on the record. I have literally no idea what the song's about. I think it's about like walking around by yourself.
It's about the Apostle in Triumph, man. This is a triumphant victory, a positive outlook at the end of this Opeth.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, and it is a really cool intro, and then the rest of the song's just great. So I don't know, just like the rest of this album, like I don't know, Orchid's a pretty dang good album. Like I have very few flaws. If you're not into prog, if you're not into long song lengths with a lot of different unrelated parts, then you're not gonna like this album. But
I mean, if you're already an Opeth fan, especially of the mid-period stuff, like, and you do like more heavy music other than that, like you'll probably really like this record.
And I could totally see how, like, I don't know, if you were some person in the mid-90s, you never like just listening to a bunch of death metal, how this would seem like a really interesting take on it, because it really does sound like nothing else from that time.
And it still doesn't. There is no band like Opeth. Even, you know, going back to like December when we talked about the Reticence record, like there's a lot of Opeth influence in there, but like you can tell it's Opeth influence, but it still doesn't hit that niche that Opeth has managed to fill constantly for 30 years, which that's just a strange melodic. It's just, I don't know. Opeth should be its own genre because, like, I don't know. This isn't the melodic death metal that I don't like.
No, I agree. It doesn't really sound like any of the mid-90s Swedish Gothenburg scene. Like, it's definitely influenced by that, but it really does feel like something distinct.
Yeah.
And, like, I mean, I honestly could not think of, like, a single group that sounds like this record in particular. And it's funny because, you know, Opeth are so goddamn influential. I feel like literally every modern death metal band owes at least some part of their sound to Opeth.
Yeah. It's dark, it's like kinda heavy, it's super memorable, and
from start to finish, it's just a very memorable listen. Honestly.
It's absolute, but it's undeniably unique, and I think that's the biggest card that Orchid and the entire Opeth discography is able to play. It is it is Opeth.
Yep, no, I agree. And I mean, I'm excited to see where it goes on the follow-up Morning Rise, which I've honestly probably listened to more often.
Oh, I've listened to Morning Rise way more often than I have.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard, at the very least, Black Rose Immortal like 90 times.
Yeah. Well, wait, before we get too ahead of ourselves, what's our rating for Orchid?
Well, you know, considering how we're starting from the beginning, I think so far Orchid of the first one Opeth album, I think Orchid's probably the best.
Well, okay, yes. What do you should we give a number rating? Should we give like a
I don't know.
five orchids out of 5? Like what's our criteria?
I don't know.
For the
I'd probably give it a strong 8.
I would also probably give it a strong 8. That's more what I was going for is like I think in addition to ranking them, I do think we should put them in a vacuum.
No, that's fair. Yeah, no, I'd give this record a strong 8, like light 9. But like I don't know. I don't really like to get specific with the numbers, but
yeah,
like I don't. I think it's a very, very solid record, and there are very few flaws, but it is a little long-winded, and the fact that I can't come up with like meaningful distinctions between all the songs isn't a bad thing, but
it is a glaring flaw.
Yeah.
I don't think it takes away from the record.
I agree. Especially while you're listening to it, it's more just like, oh crap, is that sick harmonized lead over galloping bass drum on this song or that song? Because they all have it. They all have fairly similar structures too.
So certainly next week we're going to be talking about Morning Rise, unless we feel so compelled to review one of the many releases that are coming out in the next week, which kind of works as a very natural segue. But join us next week. We will be talking about Opeth's Morning Rise, which came out in 1997? 96? I don't know.
Yeah, no, 1996, which is funny because it was released a year afterwards.
Yeah. But anyway, before we talk about... Well, we're not going to talk about Morning Rise, but...
What's some news?
Well, since I mentioned what's coming up in the next week, then we can move on to news. Because we have a kind of stacked release week this week. Fortunately, because obviously the month of January has been pretty dry to this point. There's a ton of stuff coming out.
Oh my god, yeah. Friday, this is one of those dates that you put in your calendar for a while, and then when it comes up, you're like, oh my god, I have to listen to 8 albums next week.
To start, we have The Bodies, I've Seen All I Need to See, which currently, if I'm not incorrect, is the #1 album on Rate Your Music for the year so far, which is a great sign, if anything, for these sludge doomers.
It's great. I mean, I've listened to a fair amount of the Bodies albums. Like, they're super prolific, and based off the singles I've heard, like, I'm actually really excited for this record.
The Bodies kind of not hit or miss, but like they have a very interesting sound that if you're not into it, you won't. But if you like your stuff weird, noisy, and pretty heavy, definitely check out this upcoming Body record.
I'm very excited, honestly.
Additionally, we have releases from Accept is coming out with a new record, Too Mean to Die.
Too Mean to Die.
Obviously, Accept is
oh my god, I hate it.
One of the massive German heavy metal bands that have been around since the 70s. So, all you Accept fans, we respect you. We won't be listening to that record. But have fun. What we also will be listening to, though, is the new Tribulation record, When the Gloom Becomes Sound. But this is also the first record without the founding member of the band.
Oh no! It's almost like I've never listened to Accept before, and I'm probably... Oh, no,
Tribulation.
Okay, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I was totally zoning out, because I just didn't care. Wait, is Johannes Anderson really in...
Yeah, he recorded the record, but he's not...
I thought it was the other guitarist.
I don't know. I don't know Tribulation. No, who just left?
One of the guitarists.
Yes, the founding guitarist. The other Jonathan. There's 2.
Bruh.
Well, Jonathan Holton is gone from the band, but he has been there since the group's inception, so it's going to be very interesting to hear what Where the Gloom Becomes Sound does for Tribulation. So I'm going to have to go back and listen to their last record from 2018.
Down below. Yeah, that record's pretty solid, so... And I mean, Tribulation are good, they really don't miss, so I'm sure this record will be good, too.
A few other pretty freaking big records. Harakiri for the Sky's 5th album, Mare, comes out on Friday.
That's nuts.
The singles from this record are pretty stellar, especially the one featuring Nej of Alcest fame. We love Alcest here at PMMetalGuide. There's also there's a feature from Sylvain on this record as well.
Really?
No, I lied. Another random person. But anyway,
Audrey Sylvain?
I thought it was Sylvain. I guess I'm not. In with it. One of the vocalists from Test Noir is on this record.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
And also, I don't know the other feature, but there isn't a feature. And then the last song is a placebo cut.
Nice.
Song to say goodbye. So anyway, Dark Year for the Sky. Black Gaze band, if you don't know who they are. They're from Austria, I think. They founded in early 2010s, and they've been running a pretty good high for the last couple of years, especially off of their last two records, Trauma and Arson.
Yeah, I mean, they're huge. They're one of the bands that sort of herald like the modern post-black thing.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it'll be good. I mean, their past few albums have been great.
Yeah.
So.
And the record that we're extremely excited for,
Soen! Woo!
new Soen record.
Speaking of Opeth.
Yeah, speaking of Opeth.
Our Swedish, prog rock / metal all-star group, led by Martin Lopez of Opeth fame.
The drummer for the arguably best Opeth era.
Ooh.
Is one of the heralding chief songwriters of this project. If you've never heard Soen, you're not listening to PMMetalGuide because
yeah, we absolutely love Lotus, which that was like one of our favorite records of the year.
I don't remember where we placed it in.
I think we put it like number 8 or 7 or something.
It was pretty high.
I don't know. It's a good record, and like Kaya before it's good. The Rhino one's good. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Someone really I like all.
They don't miss, but we are kind of nervous. We're gonna have some tea here.
The first single, Antagonist, I think we talked about this, probably the worst Soen song I've ever heard.
Yeah, no.
That song is dog shit.
It's gonna be really interesting to listen to this record because we're kind of skeptical, but we're hopeful. I'm hopeful, at least.
No, me too.
And
I mean...
That's Imperial, by the way. It comes out on
It's called
Friday.
Imperial?
Yeah.
Imperial Triumphant?
Imperial
yeah,
anything.
I don't know, man. I feel like someone know what they're doing. Lotus was so good. I'd be... Honestly, this record will probably be like a 7.
I will be shocked if we don't at least enjoy it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll probably bang it. What makes me think, 2019 was an interesting year, because, Lotus literally came out, the same time, very into January, mm-hmm. and I listened to that album probably every week for the entire year, multiple times. Yeah. So, it'll be interesting to see how Imperial fares. I'm sure it'll be good. I'll definitely be grinding it. I'm sure we'll talk about it on Tuesday with some hot takes.
We will. On Thursday, you mean...
Yeah! Next Thursday.
Next Thursday.
When we
release this podcast.
We definitely don't record these 2 days in advance.
Not at all. Also, there's some other big releases from the only other one that at least is on my radar is the Demoniac album. So It Goes, their second record.
AMG just gave them a 4, right?
Yeah, AMG just gave them a 4. I've never heard of this band, but 5 tracks, 42 minutes. The last song is 19 and a half, or almost 20 minutes. So
that's what we like to see here.
Black and thrash metal out of Chile.
Chile, interesting.
So we'll have to check that one out and also get back to. I'm sure we'll have a...
Yeah, I don't know. It should be an action-packed.
There's also a ton of underground releases coming out. So if you're at least somewhat in tune with the underground, check out the releases that are coming up there. Also go to Invisible Oranges, No Clean Singing,
Toilet of
Hell, and they'll give you all the underground releases that you could need.
Very true. And I don't know, on to the news. It's funny because literally nothing happened this week, but I have a decent amount of things to talk about too.
I have a few things to talk about.
So System of a Down are doing a virtual live stream event. Woo!
I'm sure it'll be good.
I mean, yeah, it's sod. They have all the money in the world, and they're actually doing it to raise money for the freedom-fighting soldiers of Artsakh and Armenia who have suffered war crimes at the hands of Azerbaijan, later abetted by Turkey.
Yep.
And, I don't know, I'm sure it'll be fun. It's kind of funny. I don't know, I'm surprised that their drummer's, just gonna be there.
Still in the band. Yeah.
Yeah, like
it's really weird. That I don't know what the System of a Down dynamic is, but
I
sure
think they all just hate each other.
They have to.
Because, like, they haven't released an album for so long, and, like, Sturgeon and Darren have both released, like, 4 solo albums that were meant to be solid material.
Yeah. It's just kind of sad that we won't hear any news. I mean, we got those 2 tracks, which...
We're good.
At least Genocidal Humanoids is a banger and a half.
Oh, I agree.
And Retake the Land is also pretty... I mean, it's a standard sod track, but it's good.
Man, now I gotta re-listen to Steal This Album.
Yeah. All of them, dude. Every time I go back and listen to Toxicity, I'm like, dude, I don't understand. Like, I did not get this as a kid, but like now I'm in.
University, you. What are you on the world?
It's
what are you on
really
disorder?
Really
yeah, no, I mean, there's. I feel like I like actually got into like quote unquote heavy music with like Toxicity and Chop Suey and Aerials, which is a meme, but
no, it's true. I mean, dude, Rock Band 1, Rock Band 1 has Chop Suey in it.
No, Rock Band 2.
Rock Band 2.
Yeah, I remember like playing Toxicity in front of my parents when I was like 12, and then being
I think Chop Suey's in Rock Band 1.
Isn't 2?
No, because I think Toxicity's in Rock Band 2. I don't think they're both.
No, trust me, Chop Suey's in Rock Band 2. I know this for a fact.
Well, regardless, what else? What other news do you
have? Leprous are doing another live stream. You know, Leprous have done like 4 quarantine live streams. I haven't seen any of them, sadly, but this one's cool. They're streaming every day for a week, and they're writing a song with their fans, which is actually really cool. A band I know that's been doing this is the Deer Hunter. Casey has been doing streams on Pillar, which is like this weird exclusive. I was right?
You were right.
Yeah, I'm always right. I know Casey from the Deer Hunter has been doing this sort of thing.
Toxicity was Rock Band 1 DLC, so you were wrong and right.
I didn't say anything about Toxicity.
Yeah, you did.
No, I didn't. I just said.
Oh, well, all right. Go back to Leprous. We're done. We're done here.
Yes, we are. Yeah. So apparently you can input like Leprous, the instruments they're using, the tempo. Time signature, dynamics,
gonna be interesting
content.
To hear what they come up with.
I don't know. Hopefully all the Leprous fans, myself included, just make them write a death metal song. I just want to hear like a 20-minute long death metal Leprous song.
Let's just get Forced Entry again.
Yeah, let's get Forced Entry, but twice as long.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's get an Eshon feature. Let's get like a 3-minute long cello solo to a gent backing track. I want to hear it all.
It'll be great.
Honestly, I kind of want to tune into this. In fact, I'm gonna like ask my dad about this when I get home because I'm sure it'll be fun.
I'm sure he'd like to join you in
yeah, no, my dad's a huge Leprous fan, so this could be fun.
Yeah.
Shout out to my dad, everyone.
Shout out to Howard. To beep.
To beep. Let's see. Iced Earth's John Schaefer update. Woo! So he has been extradited to DC with no bail. He waived his rights to a preliminary hearing, and he got charged on 6 accounts. Knowingly entering or remaining in any restricted building, disrupting the order of conduct, knowingly engaging in an act of physical violence, violent entry, engaging in an act of physical violence in a Capitol building, and parading, demonstrating, or picketing in a Capitol building.
Ugh.
So he's probably part of the Oath Keepers, which is a paramilitary alt-right group, which to put gently is cringe.
Yeah, it's cringe.
As we like to say in the business, Nazi punks fuck off.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's kind of, I guess I don't know the position of the rest of Iced Earth's bandmates.
We went over that a few weeks ago.
Yeah, but at the very least, fuck John Schaefer, and I don't feel nothing for this dude.
Yeah, no. It's
cringe.
It's cringe. It's horrible. Honestly, if you even, you know what? I think it's fine to alienate some of our listener base. If you agree with John Schaefer and his actions in the past month or so, do yourself a favor and turn off the podcast. But beside that point, that's good news.
Yeah.
Because I think that someone who did something pretty evil.
Yeah, you should be held accountable, bruh.
Should be held accountable.
Speaking of being held accountable, Insane Clown Posse were compared to Trumpism.
What the heck?
No, literally. In an Atlantic article was like, we're gonna see this juggalo style of government end.
Oh my god.
Which is, I mean, I don't know. To me, like, ICP is the furthest thing from Trumpism.
Well, it's like, I think it's sort of being put in the lens of like, oh, it's so the cult status is so far pushed that, like, I guess it's kind of similar.
Yeah,
like,
kinda.
like I don't know. I think the cult of the Juggalo. The Juggalo, yeah. The cult of the Juggalo is that's prevalent. Like that exists.
Yeah, I mean, Juggalos are based.
No, they are based. I'm not saying they're not good people.
No,
they're great people, but it is sort of that gung ho, like,
yeah.
Oh man, I care about nothing other than the Juggalo.
And also, they have a pretty similar demographic thing. Like, I mean, most Juggalos are like Midwestern, lower middle class people, and same. Well, at least that's sort of the stereotype of the Trump voter.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, ICP's values, both Violent J and Shaggy Tudo, both absolute kings, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, they've been pretty anti, like, a lot of Republican politics, very inclusive. Like, I know for a fact, like, I'm pretty sure Shaggy Tudo's daughter's a furry, and he, like, goes through the furry conventions, and, like, he promotes equality for everyone, and I don't know. Like, ICP's base is shit, okay?
No, absolutely.
And Trumpism is definitely not, so, I don't know. That's not even an article. I don't know why the heck Metal Injection reported on it, but they did. And finally...
No, I got some news after you, but this is important. This is
Adam.
important.
What do you think's happening with Fear Factory?
Dude, new album coming soon.
Dude,
so
we're gonna
excited.
review it, and it's gonna be the worst thing we listen to all year.
Yes, you're right.
But, Dino Cazares found a bullet in his windshield. Dude,
Explain.
Dude, what is Dino doing?
Please go into why Dino found a bullet.
Dude, I don't know. He tweeted on it the other day, and he was like, "Yo, there's a .45 caliber bullet in my windshield." And then apparently he was.
So that stayed in his windshield, didn't shatter his windshield. Does that mean Dino has bulletproof windows?
I don't know, man.
I mean, if he found it in his windshield, that means his windshield got cracked but didn't shatter.
I literally have no idea. But I guess
I'm just thinking. I think Dino has had this coming clearly because he's got bulletproof windows.
Well, no, and then the LAPD asked him if he had enemies, and he said yes and named 3 people. So maybe he has gang affiliations. I don't know. That's kind of nuts.
It never ends.
We're literally the Fear Factory gold mine never ends. Like, who knew that the modern day Godfather would be playing out like this?
All right. I have two things to talk about. Very brief. Both cool though. Well,
go ahead.
One's relatively more cool.
Make my day.
So apparently there's this new metal RPG system that is coming out called Gods of Metal Ragnarok with the CK. And it's a metal themed like role playing game system, right? So,
I'd totally play it.
So, it's like your D&D except in a metal world. I'm just gonna read what the sort of the Kickstarter I guess advertises. You pledge your allegiance to a patron metal god to create your outfit, your weapon, and your accessory to create a sweet-ass avatar who is sure to kick ass or die magnificently attempting to ascend to godhood. A formed band of adventurers made up of player positions, aka classes like the Brutalizers, the Blood Guards, the Howlers, the Shredders, Chord Masters, and Amp Lords. I know. You fight back against the enemies of Ragnarok, such as the Electric Liches of Howling Wastes, Pit Demons of Borgwarl, the Warlords of Ox, the Pro-Augur, those fucking Bose Imps, and the Ragnasaurus Rexes. There's also a ton of other stuff. It's honestly pretty deep and, at least what it looks to be, well documented. They have a Kickstarter who, in like 2 days, reached their goal already of 20,000. They're already double that. They're up to about 40,000 pledges, or $40,000 worth of pledging at this point. So this is coming. It's on the horizon. It says that it hopes to ship by October of this year. So I don't know if you're interested in that sort of stuff. Please, look, we are.
Yeah, no, hey, that seems cool. I mean, there's definitely a pretty big overlap, I think, with like pretty extreme metalheads and RPG fans.
And not only this, but there is also a custom-made soundtrack by the developers, which includes up to this point tracks from Motorhead, Armored Saint, Silver Tomb, and Gygax, among others. Also, Charlie from Anthrax and Carla Havey from Butcher Babies have also worked on the soundtrack.
Cool. I want to hear Attila Sishar on this album.
So, I don't know, if you like metal and you like RPGs, check out Gods of Metal Ragnarok. Support the Kickstarter. Honestly, the backing pledges aren't too expensive, and I don't know. I think it'll be probably pretty cool.
What are like the max stretch goals?
The max stretch goals are like pretty cool. There's a bunch of they're gonna make a bunch of stuff about it, and like miniatures and blah blah blah, all this stuff. They have a ton of pledge goals. Check it out. Their Kickstarter is, you can find it on most of the main metal websites, but you can also look up Gods of Metal Ragnarok on Kickstarter, and I'm sure you'll find the project. They've already hit, like I said, one of their stretch goals, and I assume that's only been up for 2 days. That's just going to keep going up.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's cool, and I'm sure...
Oh, and the Cyberpunk 2077, the group that made that soundtrack is making this soundtrack.
Oh, cool.
So, if we know anything, and we have talked about that soundtrack on the show.
Yeah, Cyberpunk soundtrack's amazing, so...
it's going to be great.
Well, hey, that's some good news.
Additionally, finally, we have another banned beer to add to the collection.
Oh my god.
Not Opeth. Deftones is dropping the Ohms Pale Ale.
Oh my god. They're dropping a Deftones IPA.
It is a Deftones IPA, brewed by Belching Beaver Brewery. It will arrive in select U.S. markets on the 1st of February.
Oh my god.
Here's a description of what fans can expect from the brewery. Announcing our latest Deftones x Belching Beaver collaboration, and the newest member of our collection, Ohms Pale Ale. This new recipe blends citrus notes with lemon peel and light pine, providing a more nuanced and complex flavor than your standard pale ale.
Oh boy.
16 ounce 4-packs will be available on February 1st for a limited time in select U.S. cities. More details, including your label, blah, 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 blah. So if you want the, this is not the first Deftones IPA with Belgian Beaver. They also have a Phantom Bride IPA, a White Pony Double Dry Hopped IPA.
Oh my god!
A Swerve City Pog IPA.
Oh my god!
And a Good Morning Beautiful Brown Ale.
Okay, well clearly we got to start buying some Deftones beer and reviewing it for the show.
Obviously. So if you're into beer and alcohol, check out the Ohms Pale Ale.
One of our friends collects metal musicians' alcohol, so we might have to let him know about this.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny.
But I mean, that's all we have for this week. I think. Oh, we were going to talk about one more thing.
Yes,
Sam just so politely reminded me.
Yeah, I totally forgot about this too, but arguably the most important best of list of 2020. I know that was a long time ago now. It has dropped. Heavy Blog is Heavy dropped their super comprehensive list yesterday, and it is, by yesterday I mean January 25th. It is absolutely massive.
There is so much music.
Yeah,
so much.
I mean, every year we sort of look to Heavy Blog as sort of like, I guess, a good critical measure, because they don't just include metal, and often we find ourselves agreeing a lot with their lists. I think last year they picked White Ward as their #1 album.
Oh god, I think that's right. I'm not sure. I don't know.
And the year before that was like Rivers of Nile. But
yep,
I mean,
right.
their top albums are always pretty good. And this year's no different. This year it's a different format. They break it up into different categories and cover, I think, around 50 albums, which is nuts. And they really good write-ups for all of them. A lot of records you'd expect alongside others you wouldn't. We're just going to go through. We got Spirit Adrift, which, not our favorite thing. This band Video Age, which is apparently a synth-pop group that I've never heard of, so good, nice of them to feature that. In Malice's Wake, Witch Hazel, Dogleg, another band we like quite a bit, Womb Ripper, and then you got Circus Trees, Katie Malco, Sirach, Feminazgul, Rima Sawayama, Jesse Ware, Svalbard, Unleash the Archers, Butcher, and All Thrath. Come on, guys. Can you better than that?
Nathrak.
No, I can never pronounce it. Worm with a WVRM, Loud Night. So a lot of groups that I've honestly never heard of, and a lot of groups outside of metal.
Unleash the Archers, Caspian.
Yep. Skull Crusher.
Let's see.
Dawn Walker.
Let's see more. Incantation, Deftones, Sepultura.
Aesop Rock.
Really? They put the Catatonia record on there? Is this what? Is this like the classic?
This is like classic bands.
Yeah. How do you do, fellow kids?
Now I kind of want to listen to the new Acacia Strain. Honestly.
I thought the singles were okay of that record.
Is it like a sludge album?
No, it's not a sludge album. It's a freaking.
No, it's beatdown hardcore / doom.
I don't know.
It's also like really long, right? I don't know. I'm sure it's cool. Envy, Boris, Blackheart, Elder, Lady Gaga. Interesting.
That is an interesting thing.
Phoebe Bridgers, Loathe.
Yeah.
And then just a bunch of records I've never heard of, honestly. Which is cool. I'd honestly highly recommend this list because I added a few to my Spotify queue after this. Definitely got to check them out.
Flipping, Protest the Hero, Gulch.
Yep. So all groups we put on. Let's see what else. Undeath. Yeah, that record.
Foxes. Puppet.
Yep.
Spell Attack.
Yep. Nord.
Caligula's Horse.
Yep.
Zuzu. Standard.
Yep.
Cryptic Shift. There's tons. Perron.
Code Orange.
Neptunian Maximalism.
Igor.
Horse Lords.
Clowncore.
It never stops.
Ulcerate, obviously up there.
Yeah.
Uniform, The Ocean, Crossbringer, Serpent Column.
Oh, that Crossbringer record is so underrated.
Never listened to it.
It's really good.
Moon Hooch. Okay, actually, we gotta do a podcast on Mora Procosa.
I will not talk about real trap metal. Real trap metal.
I don't know. It's pretty nice, honestly.
Black Curse, Silosis, Convent, like Rats, Necrot.
That's it. It's a really solid list, though. Would highly recommend to anyone listening.
If you have a good hour or two to really just sit down and read, check this one out. The guys there know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, and it's really nice to see like them feature sort of everything because in this music age, metal listeners don't just listen to metal; we listen to basically everything, as is evident by our weekly what we've been listening to.
And by the time our next podcast comes out, not this one, but the next one, our own best of albums of the year should be out.
Yes,
according everything goes correctly.
Yes, assuming there is no national disaster like a COVID-19 pandemic. Assuming that doesn't exist.
Assuming COVID and other life interruptions don't happen, then yes, our list should be the final big list to come out.
And arguably the most important.
Arguably the most important.
Written by two people that know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. So, stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for next week when we talk about
Morning Rise. Opeth's second album.
As we continue on our Opethyssy.
Oh my god. I've been Sam.
I'm Adam.
Yeah. Anthony Fantano. Forever.
PMMetalGuide forever.